All right, let's talk Seattle Seahawks. This is obviously one of the best teams in football. One of the surprises in football, certainly how dominant they've been on the offensive side. There's been a lot of people trying to figure out what is the Seattle Seahawks secret sauce? How are they here? What is their strategy? Obviously, Clint Kubiak doing a phenomenal job. We've got some reporting and some data for you guys today that kind of gives you a real different look at what the Seahawks are doing and why I think what Kubiak and this squad has done is absolutely incredible. And I think it makes them more dangerous than any other team in football. We'll get to all of that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Seattle Seahawks team, certainly offensively, defense is good, but offensively, I mean, it's off the charts. You watch them play football, I mean, they drop 40 burgers, 38 points, 42 points. They make it look easy, big plays across the board. I mean, they just dominate, folks. They are a juggernaut right now, heading into, of course, a massive matchup in the NFC West against the Los Angeles Rams this weekend. The entire country is stoked to see that one. I know you Seattle Seahawks fans are excited as well. But there's sort of been a discourse going around talking about what makes Seattle so special offensively. A lot of discussions of their personnel packages and how they use tight ends and different looks and things like that to make their offense very effective. But I think what people lose sight of when you get into the weeds is the high-level approach from Kubiak and the players. And we're going to talk about that today. So first things first, I want to bring up a graphic that was going around social media here. Let me pull it up on the screen here, highlighting offensive play volume. This is courtesy of Underdog Fantasy and how fast they operate. So it's seconds elapsed per play, that's the x-axis, and you've got offensive plays per game, the y-axis. So the teams in the top right quadrant, they run a lot of plays and they run them quickly. The teams in the bottom right quadrant, they move fast, but they don't get a lot of chances. Top left, they get a lot of plays and have the ball a lot, but they're pretty slow. And the bottom left are, very slow, deliberate, not a lot of no huddle, methodical football teams. And that's where we find the Seattle Seahawks next to teams like the Eagles, the Raiders, the Ravens, and the Miami Dolphins, which is kind of interesting when you consider the structure of those teams. The Ravens may be a little bit of an exception because they missed Lamar Jackson for a number of games. But how could Seattle, arguably the team's best offense, I think they are right now at this point statistically, they're one of the greatest in the past 20 years up to this point. Why are they lumped with that group? Why are they so slow and methodical? And a lot of people, ask the question, it's like, why aren't they as no huddle explosive the way, other teams are? Why aren't they at least middle of the road the way, look at the Los Angeles Rams, very good offense. You can see them upper right-hand quadrant. Or can you look at least, say, the Detroit Lions and say, okay, maybe the Lions, they may be a little bit slower, but they try and run a lot of plays, right? It's like, why are they both? Why do they run so few plays and they don't run hurry up? What makes that part of Seattle's strategy? And the answer is very clear and obvious. The reality is the Seattle Seahawks team is built for the big play. They've created this ultimate counter movement in football. And I've got some more data courtesy of True Media to kind of highlight that. So this first graphic is total EPA. Offensive rush EPA is the x-axis. EPA stands for expected points added for anyone who's unfamiliar. The y-axis is pass EPA. You can see the Seattle Seahawks, they're well above average in pass EPA, a little bit below average in rush EPA. So a total expected points added, they're good, but they're not jumping off the page, right? You look at this and you would not say Seattle's got the best offense in football. You would say that's the Colts or maybe the Bills or the Chiefs or something like that. When you go into our next graphic on a per play basis, it's more of the same, right? You can see, all right, the Seattle Seahawks, maybe they just run fewer plays. No, the reality is they, on a per play basis, again, the rush EPA per play, per rush is the x-axis, per drop back, per pass is the y-axis. Very similar rankings across the board here. So breaking it down on a per play basis doesn't really change the EPA. So this is not a team that's, super methodical and deliberate 8-9 yards at a time. What are the Seattle Seahawks? They have created an offense under Clint Kubiak that's the best big play generator that we've seen this decade. So let me pull up this first graphic here highlighting that. This is the big play machines this year. The 20% of the percentage of plays, that are 20 plus yards or 20 plus yards, 20 yards or more. You can see the Seattle Seahawks at the top of the list there. 8.6%. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills at 7.4%. The gap between the Seahawks and Buffalo, the gap between 1 and 2, is the same size as the gap roughly between the Buffalo Bills, again 2, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9 or 10. So you're looking at the gap between 1 and 2 is roughly the same as the gap between 2 and 10, right? The Seattle Seahawks are lapping the field in terms of generating big plays. And a lot of people look at that and wonder, well, is that sustainable? Normally it isn't, except when you consider the fact that this is all part of Seattle's plan. They have created an offensive strategy that's absolutely brilliant. So in the old school football, we're talking 60s, 70s, right? What would you do? Run the football 3 yards in a cloud of dust and then take a big play over the top, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty, right? Run the ball with Franco Harris, pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock, then take a deep shot with Lynn Swann and Stallworth, right? That's how they won offensively. That was their entire game plan. That was most teams' game plan. Pound the rock 2-3 yards in a cloud of dust. Doesn't have to be a lot of big plays, and then big passing plays, right? That's the way football used to be played. Of course, it's a different era in 2025, but Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks offense have taken that approach and really applied it with a modern twist. They don't run the football up the middle 2 or 3 yards to simply set up the big play. They do run the football, of course. They do it with personnel packages. People talk about the 12 and 13, 1 running back, 2 tight end, 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight end personnel packages, and they say it's all about creating matchups and creating opportunities, and that's 100% true. But there's another element in there as well. It's creating the illusion of a 3 yards in a cloud of dust, a power football team, which creates those big play opportunities. Essentially what the Seattle Seahawks have done, and this is where it's absolutely genius, is where they've created, based on their personnel packages and their schemes, a 1975 football game. And defenses, while they're very modern, they're very athletic, they're very fast, they don't know how to play that way. Right, it's been 50 years, obviously, right? There's nobody left of it that's coached or played football that's actually being involved today in terms of a lot of how the game is played versus 1975 versus 2025. But Seattle has essentially rolled back the clock by their strategy, saying we're going to play by that style, and no team has an answer for it. And that's why we're seeing a historically great big play generation for the Seattle squad. Let's put a little context on this. So this is the last 6 seasons big play machines, the percentage of your plays that are 20 plus yards. The Seattle Seahawks 2025 squad up to this point is the best in the past 6 seasons, and there's some great offenses on there. The 49ers from a few years ago were a machine. The Ravens, obviously Lamar Jackson, MVP. You can look at Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions from a couple years ago, a couple Chiefs mentions. You had the Tom Brady Buccaneers on there, right? There's a lot of big play machines over the past 6 seasons, but the Seattle Seahawks are clear and above the best. They're clear and above the most efficient in terms of consistently getting those big plays, and it's all by design. None of this is by luck. None of this is by happenstance. None of this is by, hey, listen, what do you know? We just Sam Darnold just so happens to hit a lot of big plays. This is totally the structure. And I think this is something a lot of people don't realize. People try and get in the weeds. People try and get deep into the analytics and the personnel packages. And I get it. It's fun. It's exciting. We have on this channel. But from a macro high-level perspective, what the Seattle Seahawks have done is essentially recreate a strategy that was used 50 years ago, and now no one can really adjust to it. And this isn't uncommon in NFL history. Teams have done this before in the past. In fact, in the 1970s, the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Landry, their head coach, a Hall of Fame coach, he famously resurrected the shotgun formation. The shotgun had been dead for 20 years. He brought in the shotgun formation in passing situations, and teams couldn't defend it. The Cowboys with Roger Staubach had all these amazing comebacks, fourth quarter comebacks. They could line up the points. They set the passing game on fire. Roger Staubach retired as with the most efficient passer, highest passer rating in NFL history, mainly because obviously he's a great player, but because Landry resurrected an offensive strategy that was 20 years old, that was decades old at that point, and the defenses at that time couldn't handle it. Now, this is to a whole other level, but it's that same mindset. Defenses can't handle what the Seattle Seahawks are doing. Their personnel packages, their structures, it looks like 1975. Pull up an old game, right? You see a running back, a fullback, and 1 or 2 tight ends, maybe 1 receiver, maybe 2, right? Everyone all bunched together, condensed, and it's a run, and then a big intermediate or deep throw. And if you watch Seattle, that's kind of what they are like. It's one of those things, it's so bizarre. And it took me pretty much at this point in the season and seeing this data to finally realize who the Seattle Seahawks are. The Seattle Seahawks aren't the 24 Baltimore Ravens. They're not the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs. Not at all. They're the 1975 Pittsburgh Steelers. Right? I'm not saying they're as good as the Steel Curtain or anything like that. But stylistically, that's who they are. And I tell you what, no one can stop them. No one can handle it. Because no one knows how to play that way successfully. Mike McDonald, Kubiak, and these players and the assistant coaches across the board have done a great job. They've done something historically great in Seattle. People look at the numbers and their performance and they say, wow, they're innovative to the extreme. And they are to a certain extent, of course. But like it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, nothing new is under the sun. And right here, the Seattle Seahawks have reinvigorated the past, the 1975 Pittsburgh Steelers, in a way that no NFL defense can handle so far this season. And with this approach and their just ability to generate big plays at a rate no one can even touch over the last 6 years, I don't see a way the Seattle Seahawks team gets stopped. I'm not saying they're going to run the table. I don't know if they're going to win a Super Bowl or not. But boy, oh boy, there's something special in Seattle. And what we're seeing right now is a resurrected strategy that no one can handle. We got more to break down when it comes to the Seahawks team, but first, Seattle fans in the comment section below, want to hear your thoughts on this 2025 Seahawks squad and compare it to other offenses in Seahawks history and see how you think they stack up, right? We know the story's not complete yet, right? A lot of things could happen, but want to give your thoughts. Do you think it's better than others? Do you think it's middle of the road? Do you think there's another offense that's better? Put some historical context on this for us in terms of Seattle Seahawks offenses and where this 2025 group stacks up. Little ranking, however you want to do it, put it in the comment section below. Look, but obviously the Seattle team, they're heading into a massive matchup, and that's what we're going to transition to, of course, against the Los Angeles Rams in the game of the week. So we got the matchup predictor here, courtesy of ESPN versus their analytics, and they've got the Rams having a 60-40, 59-9, Seattle 39.8. Obviously, there's a slight chance there could be a tie. We learned that this season. There still can be ties in the National Football League. Thank you, Green Bay and Dallas, for bringing that back to the forefront. But we can see the Rams are 60-40 favorites based on the analytics, and that's pretty interesting. When you look at the spread, the Rams opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. They've shifted to a 3.5-point favorite at home, which is, basically two even teams, two 7-2 teams, NFC West teams, right? It feels even, right? Which is that 2.5, 3.5 point. The home team gets that advantage. So basically, the sports books, the odd makers are like, all right, we're calling this even, right? The Rams are at home, so they get to 2 to 3 points, and we're just let it ride, right? And that's we'll throw our hands up. Maybe the Rams, they got the more experienced coach, the more experienced quarterback. Okay, that's the tiebreaker. They're at home, right? That's sort of the vibe, and that's basically what all the sports books are saying. But I want to talk about the analytics there for a second at the top, the matchup predictor, because it goes into what I said before. The analytics and the raw numbers, which is basically, the formula that ESPN and all these other sites use, are very similar in terms of the inputs and the outputs and the calculations to what the teams use. They look for efficiency. They look for being methodical, right? In terms of how they like to run their models, the way they see it is if you run 3 straight plays, getting 8 yards per play, that's better than if you run up the middle for 2, and then throw a deep pass for 20. They sit there and say, yeah, 3 plays, 24 yards, but that one is much more consistent, much more methodical, avoided the third down. Analytically, they're better, even though the net result will be the same. That's how a lot of these models work. What the Seattle Seahawks have done is they found a way to replicate that same pattern of success, but doing it in a way defenses can't handle through all the reasons I mentioned earlier in this video, recreating the strategy from the 1970s. I really think this is the dawn of a new era of offensive football. Mike Macdonald brought in new stuff defensively and continues to do that with Seattle. But I really think the real genius of Macdonald and Kubiak, you combine them both together, is looking to the past and unearthing an old style of play that no one can handle. And it's going to be a long time before anyone can come up with the schemes and personnel, because everyone is still living in 2025. Seattle's living in 1975. But right now, there's no one that can handle it, and it makes them better, I think, than pretty much any one of their opponents going forward. It's going to be an interesting game against the Rams, guys, that could go a bunch of different ways. But if the Seattle Seahawks continue to dictate their will offensively, they're going to be really tough to stop, not just on Sunday, but for the rest of the season.